Hi, this is Dr. John Bergduff. In this video, we're going to practice factoring a perfect square trinomial. Here's a trinomial in front of us, and before we look at any of the other techniques, I want to just help us all remember that we should always look for a common factor among the terms first and factor that out using the distributive law sort of in reverse before we look at anything else. If you look carefully at this polynomial, you won't see any common factor between any of the coefficients, but notice that every term has both an x factor and a y factor, each raised to the power of 1 as a common factor. So before we do anything else, we want to factor out an x times y, which would leave me with the first term, since 1x has been factored out and the y, with 49x squared. From the second term, factoring out 1x and 1y, 126xy. And factoring out the x and one of the y's from the final term, 81y squared. Now, this trinomial could very well factor some more, and we could use the trial and error method, we could use the AC method, we can use any of those. But what is particularly helpful to us is if we happen to notice that the trinomial fits into the pattern of a perfect square trinomial. Let's talk about how you recognize that. So, first thing you want to ask yourself simply is this: are two of the terms perfect squares? I think we can notice that that is true. If you look at this term, I'm going to put some arrows in here going all over the place. 49x squared is a perfect square. You square the 7 and you square the x. So this is a perfect square. This term on the end is also a perfect square. 9y, if you square that, I actually meant to put a square here to emphasize that's a square. 9y perfect square would be 81y squared. So are two terms perfect squares? Yes. Then what you ask yourself is this. Let's say that we refer to these quantities that are squared as a and b. That one's A, that one's B. The next question you want to ask yourself is this: is the third term 2 times A times B? Take the term that is squared first and the term that's squared second, and ask yourself what would happen if I multiply 2 times this one, 2 times the 7x times the 9y. Let's see what would happen. 2 times 7x times 9y. And if I multiply 2 times 7 times 9, I'm going to get my calculator out here to just check real carefully. 2 times 7 times 9 is 126xy. If that is true, if that third term turns out to be the right one, then what you have is a perfect square trinomial. And we're going to look at exactly how that factors. If that third term is not what it's supposed to be, oh well, that just means you have to go back to trial and error or the AC method, the grouping method, and you keep on going as you would. But because that is true, you can use this wonderful formula that we have explored here that says that if you have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, that's the same as a plus b quantity squared. Going back, our a is 7x, our b is 9y. So very simply plugging into the formula, that polynomial would just be 7x plus 9y squared. We just need to remember, and looking back one more time, that there is the factor of xy that we factored out. So not forgetting that, this polynomial will factor as xy times 7x plus 9y. That's my a and my b squared. And you're done. And that's much easier than looking for trial and error and all that sort of thing. But of course, this only works if it happens to fit the pattern exactly. Thanks.